Introduction to the nature of law. The nature of law is a system of rules and principles created and enforced by the state to regulate behavior and maintain social order. Law and rules. The law is a formal mechanism of social control that sets standards of conduct and provides consequences for those who breach them. Whereas rules are guidelines or expectations that govern behavior in society, they are not always legally binding or enforced by the state. The difference between legal rules and principles and other rules and norms of behavior are that legal rules are enforceable by courts and sanctions, where other norms rely on social approval or moral pressure. Law, morality and justice. There are many connections between law, morality, and justice. The connection between law and morality is that law is often influenced by moral values, although it does not always reflect what society considers morally right. The connection between law and justice is that the law aims to achieve justice by providing fairness, consistency, and protection of rights, although it may sometimes fall short. The connection between morality and justice is that moral principles shape ideas of what is fair and right, where justice seeks to apply those principles equally within society. Civil and criminal law. Civil and criminal law is the two main branches of law, where civil law deals with disputes between individuals and criminal law deals with offenses against the state. Civil law. Civil law is the area of law that resolves disputes between individuals or organizations, usually over rights, obligations, or compensation. The procedures in civil law are based on one party bringing a claim against another, using standards such as the balance of probabilities. The purposes of civil law are to resolve disputes, enforce rights, and provide remedies where harm has occurred. The outcomes of civil law are remedies such as damages, injunctions, or specific performance rather than punishment. The court systems of civil law are mainly the county court, the high court, and appellate courts such as the Court of Appeal and Supreme Court. Criminal law. Criminal law is the area of law that deals with conduct considered harmful to society and prosecuted by the state. The procedures in criminal law are based on the prosecution proving the defendant's guilt beyond reasonable doubt. The purposes of criminal law are to punish wrongdoing, deter crime, protect the public, and maintain social order. The outcomes of criminal law are sanctions such as imprisonment, fines, community orders, or acquittal. The court systems of criminal law are the Magistrates' Court, the Crown Court, and appellate courts such as the Court of Appeal and Supreme Court. Differences between civil and criminal law. The differences between civil and criminal law are that civil law focuses on private disputes and compensation, where criminal law focuses on public wrongdoing and punishment. The differences between the procedures in civil and criminal law are that civil cases are brought by individuals using the balance of probabilities, where criminal cases are brought by the state using beyond reasonable doubt. The differences between the purposes of civil and criminal law are that civil law aims to resolve disputes and compensate loss, where criminal law aims to punish and deter offending. The differences between the outcomes of civil and criminal law are that civil law results in remedies, where criminal law results in penalties or acquittal. The differences between the court systems of civil and criminal law are that civil cases are heard mainly in the county court and high court, where criminal cases are heard in the Magistrates' Court and Crown Court. The development of English law. English law has been developed through custom law, common law, and statute law. Custom law. Custom law is law that arises from long-established practices that are accepted as legally binding by society. Custom law has been developed through repeated behavior over time that is regarded as reasonable, certain, and continuous. In the early stage of development, custom law emerged from local practices that communities consistently followed as obligatory rules of behavior. In the later stage of development, customs were recognized by courts once they were proven to be long-standing, reasonable, and accepted by the community. Custom law is applied by the courts where they recognize a custom as legally binding and enforce it as part of the law. This is shown in the case of New Haven Port and Properties Limited v East Sussex County Council. Common law. Common law is law created by judges through decisions made in court cases rather than by Parliament. Common law has been developed through judicial precedent, where decisions in earlier cases guide the outcomes of later similar cases. In the first stage of development, judges decide cases based on reasoning and fairness where no statute applies. In the second stage of development, those decisions are recorded and become binding or persuasive precedents for future cases. Common law is applied by judges who follow the doctrine of precedent when deciding cases. This is shown in the case of Robinson v. Chief Constable of West Yorkshire Police. Statute law. Statute law is law created by Parliament through Acts of Parliament. Statute law has been developed through the legislative process, where proposed laws are debated and approved by Parliament. In the first stage of development, a bill is introduced and examined in both Houses of Parliament. In the second stage of development, the bill receives royal assent and becomes an Act of Parliament. Statute law is applied by the courts, which interpret and enforce legislation passed by Parliament. This is shown in the case of Miller v. Prime Minister. The rule of law. The rule of law is the principle that everyone, including the state, is subject to and accountable under the law. Importance of the rule of law. The rule of law is important for achieving justice as it ensures fairness and consistency in how laws are applied and enforced. However, it may not be important as strict application of the law can sometimes lead to outcomes that seem unfair in individual cases. The rule of law is important for human rights as it limits arbitrary use of power and protects individuals from abuse by the state. However, it may not be important as governments can still restrict rights through laws that are formally valid but morally questionable. The rule of law is a guiding principle of law as it underpins legal certainty, accountability, and equality before the law. However, it may not be as effective where those in power are able to influence or bypass legal processes. Elements of the rule of law. The core elements of the rule of law are equality before the law, legal certainty, and access to justice. Equality before the law means that all individuals and authorities are subject to the same laws regardless of status or power. Equality before the law is a guiding principle of law as it prevents arbitrary discrimination and ensures fairness in legal decision-making. Legal certainty means that laws are clear, publicized, and applied consistently so people can understand their legal rights and duties. Legal certainty is a guiding principle of law as it allows individuals to plan their actions and trust the legal system. Access to justice means that individuals are able to enforce their rights through fair and impartial courts. Access to justice is a guiding principle of law as it ensures that legal rights are meaningful rather than theoretical. Evaluation of the rule of law. The benefits of the rule of law are protection from arbitrary power, fairness and equality, and legal certainty. Protection from arbitrary power is a benefit as it restricts government action, shown in Miller v. Prime Minister. Fairness and equality are benefits as the law applies equally to all, shown in R v. Judge. Legal certainty is a benefit as it provides clarity and predictability, shown in Unison v. Lord Chancellor. However, the drawbacks of the rule of law are rigidity, potential injustice in individual cases, and limited protection against unjust laws. Rigidity is a drawback as strict adherence to rules can ignore individual circumstances, shown in RVB. Potential injustice in individual cases is a drawback as equal treatment can still produce unfair outcomes, shown in RV Hallam. Limited protection against unjust laws is a drawback as laws can be valid yet unfair, shown in RV Secretary of State for the Home Department. Thank you for watching this video on the nature of law. I'll see you in the next one.